Delivery. This must be the new John Blanche masterclass stuff. Colours in the Darkness. Confidential until January 9th. Okay.
Looks like I'm gonna have to paint some more Grimdark. Blue? Green? Pink?
What the fuck? When you hear the name John Blanche, there's a lot of imagery that comes to mind, and it's usually all Grimdark. Real Grimdark, not the 7 shades of brown that everybody thinks it is on Instagram. But when you break Grimdark down into its basic components like you would if you were simplifying a paint scheme, there are 2 main ideas that stick out. Dark and ominous, and gritty. These I can work with.
Even though there's 20 paints in the new John Blanche sets, the only purple is a wash, but we have blue, red, and that can-do attitude. I'm not going to dive too much into colour theory because I'm not that great with it, so any information we get would be about as useful as a codex after a data slate. But making a purple out of a blue and red that's going to show up in other parts of the model, it's going to give us some kind of mother tone or general tone. It's a feel that's going to be coming through the whole thing. And that red is Bloodthorn. I have a very specific lighting idea in mind for this piece. And because of the composition of the layout, we're creating a foreground, which is going to be our model, a background, which is the backdrop plinth, and then there is something in between, which is the bike. Theoretically, the model is going to be standing in between the bike and the light source, which means it's going to be casting some kind of shadow. But instead of creating a hard drop shadow, I want to infer a little bit more space between the two, so we're just going to soften it out. As far as application goes, with the airbrush, I'm just looking to start setting up some volumes and roughly where our light's coming from. And I say roughly because it's not a hard set, I just want to start getting some color inference in there. A lot of times people think as a light source as something like a spotlight, but there is a little bit more ambience here. Light will bounce off just about anything, so you can stretch those colors out a little further than the idea that you have of your light source. There's definitely a main direction of our light source, but it does go a little bit everywhere. Which is why I'm being a little bit more precise now with the Ember Veil Orange. We've already got our red tones in there, so now we're just building up volumetrically. And this part now, this is a lot more in line with our actual light source.
Don't worry, this isn't going to be all airbrush work. I was running late with this video and I had to make up some time somewhere. And yes, I know one of the big components that we're working with is gritty, and airbrushes are smoother than freshly shaved out of the shower, but there's a few things in our bag of tricks that can help blend the airbrush work into traditional brushwork.
This is some of that purple wash I was talking about, Nightroot Shade. And because it's a wash, it's already thin, so we're just going to start glazing with it. If you struggle with mixing a glaze consistency with acrylic paints, washes are an awesome resource to just get the technique down. But if you are going to use a wash to glaze with, I would highly suggest feathering. After the initial placement of where you want the glaze, in this case the shadows, I'm going to go back, clean out the brush, and then feather out the sides. Even though it's a clean brush, there is a little bit of moisture in there, and that's going to help disperse and start to fade out some of that wash. Otherwise, we could be looking at getting some tide marks in there. But the actual question you might be asking is, why are we doing this? And this actually has a 2-part answer. 1, we're reinforcing the shadows, getting a little bit more dark to light contrast and detail separation. And 2, we're adding a little bit more of the human element. There's a pretty big difference between the outcomes of a traditional hand brush and an airbrush. And if we just jumped in with that traditional brush on top of all that smooth airbrushing, you would definitely tell a big difference. Think of it in a similar way to base, layer, highlight, but instead of colors, we're talking actual technique. The base becomes a shadow which reinforces the midtone, which is our layer, and then we have the highlights on top. So if we're coming back to this and thinking about it as a technique, all those shadows that we've just placed in there become our shadow or our base, and then our midtones and layers right in between is our airbrushing. It's kind of like a little sandwich, and then our highlights on top back to the brush. This is more about creating a consistent finish and feel. Obviously, we're already back into Bloodthorn, and I know we've already kind of gone up with the airbrush into that Ember Veil, but the Bloodthorn is a lot thinner here. And I'm going to be using those 2 things together to re-saturate everything. It also goes back to the whole hand brush, airbrush thing and adding that finish consistency. Because after that's down, we're going to come back in with that Ember Veil again, on top of the Bloodthorn again, and start highlighting. This wasn't supposed to be an airbrush versus paintbrush thing, but one more thing that you will notice in the difference of finish is the vibrancy of color. Airbrushes send out very, very thin layers of paint, and as we all know, the thinner you go, the more transparency you get. So even if you have laid something down with the airbrush, you can come back in with a traditional brush with the same color and resaturate. And if you've ever wondered before, yes, this is the exact reason that it is so hard to touch up airbrush paints, even if you're using the exact same color with the paintbrush. It may not seem like it, but it's essentially trying to color match with two different colors. Also, no, I'm not doing non-metallic metal, this is just pushing some pretty high highlight, so we're not going much higher than this at all. Again, this is just reinforcing the inference of a light source and its direction. I'm also going brighter towards the head because I want to shift all the focus up towards the face.
These new John Blanche Masterclass sets Volume 3 and 4 were sent in early by the Army Painter. Obviously, because it's still not Games Workshop who did anything with John. 40 years. And I get to show these off earlier again because you guys supported this channel so hard that the Army Painter put me on their factory team. No, I don't paint the factory itself. If I did, it'd be pink. And this all means that I get this nifty little code to give you guys a sweet discount. And trust me, when you guys come to the dark side and figure out that Terrestrial Titan is the best and most useful paint ever made, this is going to save you a lot of money in the long run. So much money that you'll be able to buy another bottle of Terrestrial Titan. But for all the Australian homies that can't order directly from the Army Painter, InGames have stepped in, activated that code, and we get that same discount from them on all of the Army Painter products that they keep in stock. But if you want to double that discount, there is also a Patreon exclusive code, and links for all of these are in the description.
That little bit of look you just saw there at the end is because I hate doing ads. They are somewhat necessary, and to be fair, InGames and the Army Painter have been very good to us. And at the very minimum, at least I'm not trying to sell you a Scottish lordship. When it comes to pushing highlights and directing focus, there's this old thing of the toes and the nose. And while that might be an OnlyFans category, the actual idea behind it is the toes and the nose shouldn't be the same level of brightness in the highlights. Using brightness as somewhat of an arrow, we're going to use the build-up of intensity to point it in the direction that we want it. In this case, and most cases, it's the face. You can already see the gradation between a shadowed foot to a medium highlighted knee. And then the highlights get brighter the closer to the face they go. It's almost like a weird backwards OSL. And we're actually going to be using this same idea on the bike as well. Because we're pushing the light more towards the front, that's where our brighter highlights and colors are going to go. It can be that simple.
I wasn't really shooting for a Blood Angels feel here. The red was because 1, it was in the box, and 2, the whole reason that there's no rider on the bike is because I was going for more of an Akira kind of thing. But since a red Space Marine will default to Blood Angels, we're going to run with it. Especially since that will actually give us a chance to inject a different color in here.
To be completely 100, I'm not the biggest fan of red. In 90% of cases when I could use red on a model, I'd just swap it out for either magenta or a hot pink. Alright, pretty obvious, we're going to work this one all the way up to yellow. And since the helmet has already copped the overspray of the purple and a couple of different shades of red, we're going to use that as the shadow tone and build straight into our orange. We're also going to jump into the DeLorean and go back in time to the first John Blanche set and pull out Moonbeam Yellow. Because this is going to be one of 2 colors that aren't fucking red, I'm not going to build the highlights up quite as far as I usually would because it's already going to take a lot of focus. Which means we get to dig into that brand new set and pull out Sun Petal. It's a little different to the Moonbeam Yellow in both brightness and luminosity, so this is going to make a fairly decent highlight color. And again, as far as highlight placement goes, I'm pushing all of these towards the face. Because remember, highlights don't just help create volumes and detail separation, they're little arrows towards the focus point of the model. And even though we haven't really spoken about grittiness, which we should have, I'm using some very choppy highlight layers to kind of sell that effect.
What you guys didn't see off camera is the layout and placement of the models in the scene. And the whole thing is a little offset, which just means that it just kind of leans to one side, which was absolutely by design. Because the bike is very front heavy and the model's pose leans it in the opposite direction, we had to balance out the weight in the composition. And as it turns out, the helmet and the head are actually on opposite sides of this imaginary little line. And this actually helps with that balance as well as bringing focus into the foreground and then shifting it more towards the face.
Even though I was fine with Rings of Power, this is going to be a Caucasian elf. And if you didn't realize until now, yeah, that's an Eldari head. Even though it's been retconned for way over 30 years, I still really like the idea of half elf, half human Space Marines. I also like that the heads are a little bit smaller because it makes the armor feel bulkier, just like all of the actual artwork. So Lord Nerds, you can suck several fat ones. Even though we're finally at the face that we've been pushing all of these focus and all of the highlights towards, we still have to kind of do it on the head itself. And to do this, the forehead and cheekbones are going to be our main highlight. This is where all that focus is coming into. And to help push that, as well as a little bit more color interest, I'm going to push a little bit of a blue glaze into either side. Cooler shadows make warmer highlights really pop out.
There's only a few things left. Some quick and dirty non-metallic metal for the crest that was repeated on some of the parts of the bike, and the leather for the bike seat itself. And thank God, because I'm recording this at 3 AM the night before this video is going to come out.
I know I said we were shooting for non-metallic metal on the chest, but it's more just super high highlights. And without going into adding battle damage and just dust and dirt everywhere, this is going to be a place that we can actually start to sell some of that grittiness. This whole workup is just between the darkness and that same skin tone hearth shard. And this whole thing is going to be a little bit blotchy, patchy, and just jump up in layer and in brightness pretty quickly. Because all I want, again, is the inference of light just bouncing off all of those sharp edges. To be completely honest, I wish that I was a little bit more organized and had more time to put into this, because I really like how the end product came out. I just wish it was kind of like a slightly higher quality. I wasn't going too hard for the seat leather. I took one of the browns that's in the new sets and a little bit of black, and that was basically that. If you really want to watch somebody paint brown, the rest of YouTube will have you sorted. For application, we're going to be using basically the same ideas we did with that not quite non-metallic metal, just jumping up in really quick layers just to again show the inference of light.
Let's knock out this base. Even though there are a few browns and desaturated colors in here that would be perfect for rock and stone, I like making things a little bit more difficult than they have to be for no reason at all.
This is that blue I've been talking about the whole video. Because we've been using a lot of warm tones in reds, oranges, and yellows, I want to contrast that with the base and the plinth. So even though I'm going back to creating that same purple mix, I kind of want it a little bit more blue heavy. The other thing I want to do is introduce a little bit of green, because that goes pretty well with red. Just ask Christmas. But when you start mixing all that together, you start to push out this chromatic grey-brown. And obviously this is all wet blended. You don't have to be precise, you don't really have to look at what you're doing, you just kind of push paint. Bases and terrain are fantastic places to kind of get in that practice for wet blending. You don't really have too much detail to worry about. It doesn't really matter about detail separation in a lot of cases, especially this. You're just pushing paint to see what happens. A little bit of sky shard since we've already got all of our tones established and we just want to build up some highlights, and we're good. This may not be your idea of Grimdark. This is Grimdark adjacent. For me, this has a little bit stronger feeling of dark and ominous. Similar imagery to Batman hanging off of a gargoyle in the middle of Gotham. And if the one thing that these new John Blanche sets do are reiterate the importance of saturation and boldness of color in Grimdark, it's probably all worth it. In order to understand darkness, you need to understand light. As always, a massive thank you to In-Games, The Army Painter, and the best Patreon members in the world. Big love, you filthy heretics.